The one thing I'm absolutely clear about is that we've got an economy that's growing right now, a huge boost in productivity. That's the good news. The bad news is that companies still haven't taken that final step in actually putting people on their payroll full time. We're seeing an increase in temporary workers, but they haven't yet taken on that full-time worker. And so providing some additional impetus to them right as the economy is moving in a positive direction, I think can end up yielding some good results. All right? Thank you, guys. That was pretty good. Thanks.
When do we see you again?
You tell Fenty to plow the streets? Shovel.
Wow. Man, you appear to have been, now that the warm-up band is played, I can't imagine there's a lot left to say, so I'll do a few of these and we'll get going. Mr. Feller?
Robert, we follow up on that issue of bipartisanship. The President said more than once that it can't just be Democrats abandoning their ideas and accepting Republican ones. It's got to be give and take. But what about the give that the White House offers? Can you offer any specific ideas or places where the White House is willing to give ground on health care?
Well, understand, you've heard the President discuss in interviews that he's done the notion of talking more fully about medical malpractice, something that you could put on the table and that we could discuss. Understand this, Republican ideas that are already in the legislation that the Senate considered. High-risk pools for uninsured with pre-existing conditions. Interstate compacts to allow coverage to be sold across state lines. Low-cost catastrophic plans for the young. Dependent coverage to age 26. Grants for prevention and wellness programs with incentives for participation in employer wellness programs. And the SHOP Act, small business insurance pools that offer affordable coverage choices. So there are Republican ideas. I think the latest figure I had from Nancy Ann were 160 amendments that were offered in the committee process by Republicans that have been put into this bill. But, Ben, that's the point of this. As you saw the President discuss in Baltimore, that we should listen to these ideas and we should have that discussion.
That sounds like you could be taking the position that the White House has listened, and now it's time for the Republicans to give ground.
No, I didn't say that. But the notion that Republican ideas aren't contained in the bill is just, I think that's just simply not true. If you think about the number of meetings that Senator Baucus had with Senator Grassley and Senator Enzi, the number of times that they spoke with the President on this issue. The notion that the President hasn't talked to Republicans is nothing more than a Republican, a GOP party talking point. But look, the point of this, Ben, is let's have a reasonable discussion. Let's sit down and discuss these issues in a bipartisan way. Let's do this in a way where we can have this discussion. We can have this discussion in front of the American people, and we can decide what ideas we can all agree on. Understand this, Ben, I think what the last example the President was using, which was bipartisanship isn't going to be 100% of your ideas or 100% of my ideas, right? That's not bipartisanship. But there has to be give and take in that process. And we have to understand that you may not get everything you want, but you may get some of what you want. And the other side may get some of that as well. When Senator McConnell and Congressman Boehner both said today, as you heard the President discuss, that the status quo, what we have currently, is unacceptable. That we have to work together now to figure out that certainty and provide it for the American people to improve the system.
My point there is that the White House's stand is that it is still willing to give in that give and take.
Absolutely. We have been willing to give in that give and take this entire time, Ben.
One last point on this, sort of the underlying issue of bipartisanship here. Does the President genuinely think that the Republican leaders in the House and Senate want to work with him on jobs on the health care? Is that his take? He's got to have a sense of it by now.
We take them at their word. We take them at their word that they do indeed want to have, they want to play a constructive role, and they want to work with Democrats on making this happen. Senators Hatch and Senator Schumer are working on a jobs tax credit on a bipartisan basis that could come up this week for a vote in the Senate. The President discussed, there was a pretty lengthy discussion on ensuring credit to small businesses as something that both the White House and and members of Congress in both parties believed was important for small business. There was a discussion on the deficit and on ensuring that the Fiscal Commission be an outlet for that, understanding that Congressman Boehner and Senator McConnell both spoke in support of their respective the House and the Senate, the respective piece of legislation on that. So I think there is, if we'll understand what the President says, in agreeing that we can have this give and take, I do think we can make progress.
Quick follow-up, Robert.
Sure.
President Obama is saying no, though, to Boehner and McConnell calls for him to scrap the House and Senate health care bills and start from scratch.
Yes.
That's a non-starter.
Just like I don't think they're going to bring their ideas to the table, right? They're going to bring the ideas that, look, and there's some in their party that want to do away with, as you saw during the presidential campaign, the entire. I wrote a few things down. I wrote eggs, milk, and bread. I crossed out bread just so I can make pancakes for Ethan if it snows, and then I wrote down hope and change just in case I forgot that.
Came in handy.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Like I don't have a Bible.
But no,
How do you sit with him?
yeah. But no, look, again, there's different ways of tax treatment for the Republicans. There's some that, like I said, there's some that want to do away with the tax deferral on health insurance, provided it. Obviously, there's some that don't. There are those that want to that believe that there should be a broader restructuring of the Medicare Advantage program that provides incentives for insurers to run a program that's already being run. And obviously there's a disagreement on that. We don't expect that the Republicans are not going to bring the ideas that they had last week to the table, and the President isn't going to scrap what has been a year-long process to get us to this point. Yes, sir.
Missile defense. Despite the President having scaled back and revised the Bush administration's missile defense strategy.
Your characterization of scaled back and revised provided broader protection for Europe and the homeland to do it in a way that is not just simply more cost effective, but actually will have a better result in the event that.
I don't want to argue the semantics of it, but he's changed the plan. Despite that, Russia's top general said today that the Russians still view the system as being directed against them, and that they're saying that this is what's holding up an agreement on a New START treaty. Now, how is the administration going to overcome that obstacle and convince the Russians of the U.S. intentions?
Well, I will say this: when President Obama talked to President Medvedev a couple of weeks ago, President Medvedev didn't bring this up as an obstacle. Our change in architecture for a missile plan that protected Europe and protected this homeland in a better way was announced last September. Yet we have had substantive negotiations going on for many months. I think the notion that somehow this is in any way an impediment to what's going on with START is simply not true. It certainly wasn't what President Medvedev told President Obama.
Okay. Russian Armed Forces Chief of Staff Nikolai Makarov said, despite the declaration of those statesmen who say that, on the contrary, it provides for our security, that's far from the case.
I would, again, I hate to contradict the President of Russia in speaking to the President of the United States about getting a START deal done and not mentioning in a phone call that's happening in the Oval Office something like this, because it's just not the case. It's not what's holding up these negotiations. These negotiations are ongoing. If it was, there's a series of things that look. Whenever you get down to this point in a treaty, you're taking conceptual agreements and putting them into words, and there are going to be some fights over different words, and that's what they're working through. But I can assure you, it's not our different approach to missiles.
Some Republicans on the Hill have been critical of this administration for not getting them involved in debate, whether it be health care reform or other issues as well.
Like
the White
what?
House has now invited them
But
to
like
the White
what
House
other
today. Well, financial reforms,
Well, again,
stimulus.
Senator Dodd and
want-
Senator Shelby up until Friday were working together on a bipartisan package for financial reform, and
But they've been critical that they haven't been brought in for the process. And now they're being brought in now. They're going to be brought in on the 25th again. Is this something that the White House, in hindsight, is saying we should have involved Republicans?
we're paving the road again to bipartisanship. But